Hello friends of YouTube, welcome back to Mike Reads the World. Today we are discussing Kuunmong, or The Nine Cloud Dream by Man-Jung, which is a classic Buddhist novel from Korea of the 17th century, but the book takes place in China and was written while its author was exiled. Well, first of all, I want to say I was just sick of sitting in a stuffy office, so I decided to go out and enjoy the near record high temperatures for early February where I live, but I am still bundled up because we're hovering around 30, 40 degrees Fahrenheit, or a little bit above 0 degrees Celsius. The snow is melting very slowly, so it's not too bad. I'm nice and bundled up. So anyway, Kuunmong, or this book, The Nine Cloud Dream, was really wonderful. In this project, I kind of have, how do I rate books? They're like, it's either me trying to not talk badly about a book I didn't really like, a so-so, middle of the road, somebody might like this, but it wasn't my favorite. Books that are good, worthwhile, and then my favorite books. And this one is definitely one of my favorites. So, why is that? Well, let me just tell you a little bit about how it starts. So, I've got about 20, 30 minutes, so I get one take at this today. How does it start? So, we have a young monk who is at a Buddhist monastery in, I believe it's southern China. And the leader of this monastery came from India, set up this monastery, is a very wise man, and he looks at this young monk whose name is names are gonna be really fun. Xiao Yu. This young monk Xiao Yu, and really sees him as kind of the bright future of the monastery, the future leader. Now Xiao Yu, because of this, Xiao Yu is given a lot of responsibility. He is an emissary to the Dragon King. And so he goes and spends some time being a diplomat with the Dragon King. And I forget which Dragon King it is. There are several Dragon Kings in this book. There's one under the lake. There's one from the Southern Sea. There might even be some from different lakes. I don't know. I can't quite remember. But and so while he's with this Dragon King emissary offers him some wine. He says, "No, I can't drink wine. That's against the precepts." But the Dragon King insists and says, "No, this wine will not awaken your passions. It will actually suppress them." And so he drinks it, and on his way back to the monastery, he sees 8 what is translated as like fairy women, who are their leader, so to speak, is the Lady Wei, who is up in the mountains, and this lady was there even before the monks came, and that's told of right at the beginning of the book, that she has a positive relationship with the leader of the monastery. But these 8 ladies are kind of just enjoying themselves, free as they've always been, at this bridge, and they arouse sort of these desires in the mind of the monk, and he can't get them out of his head as he comes back to the monastery. And so suddenly his master summons him and sends him to hell, where in hell it turns out he's not on the list. So the Lord of Hell has to send him back to Earth to basically live out his karma, I guess is the best way I can say it. And in doing so, he is also sent with these 8 fairy maidens who tempted him. And these 8 fairy maidens take the form of mortal women who he will spend the book meeting, consorting with, loving. And now this is really interesting because one way that, I suppose a way that you could reject this book or feel turned off by it is if you read it as a man's power fantasy of fulfilling his greatest dreams, having all the women he wants, and so on. But it wasn't like that at all. I mean, it, on some sense, it was, but all of these women have very strong personalities, are very talented and intelligent, and some are masterful poets. Even some of them are quite skilled in martial, and by martial I mean weapons, arts of weaponry and horseback, and they all have their own skills and often outwit, are more clever and trick our main character. So it's very interesting that it's basically this giant polygamous marriage that's being formed as you go throughout the book, very much like in the old Chinese novel I read, Water Margin, where this sort of band is, the whole book is about this group coming together, this group of beings that are mortal and yet have some quality that's a bit spiritual or demonic or like otherworldly about them. And it's very interesting because this all takes place during the Tang dynasty of China, which in the time that this Korean man wrote it, Hangul, the Korean script, was still not invented, or if it was invented, it was still not being used in a literary fashion. So this was actually originally written in Chinese, and there are wonderful footnotes in the back of the book. Normally I don't like flipping to the back of the book for so many footnotes, but this book just did such a wonderful, they were all so enlightening, and I really wanted to know, and the book was actually such a pleasure and easy enough to read on its own. It's also very funny. It's very funny and it's very entertaining, and it made me laugh out loud so many times, just at the funny one-liners some of these characters drop in, and several of the chapters end with innuendos where you can just hear the saucy music starting up as as yeah, you know what's happening between our main character Xiaoyu and his women as he meets them, and many of the chapters end sort of on that note. I don't want to spoil any of these one-liners, but they're just fantastic. And then there's some non-sexual related humor as well that I found very good. But it's a saucy book. It's good. And I really enjoyed it. But more so than all of this, even though it was very entertaining and the characters were very memorable, and all of the characters had their strong points, and in many ways it was a cozy read. Like there's just a lot of like positive things happening in this book. Again, some of the negatives you might be tempted to look at, to have a narrow vision of this book, seeing, well, like women are lesser than men, and they're still for like the princesses in the palace, right? Our main character Xiaoyu, when he's reborn into this new life to find all these women, he kind of is working his way up the administrative ranks until he's almost the emperor's right-hand man, so to speak, and is eventually, the emperor wants to, and the emperor's mother, who is the Empress Dowager, wants him to wed her sister, who is one of the princesses, and so he's essentially being invited into the royal family. This princess is one of these 8 fairy maidens who are reborn with him into this new life. So you might be tempted again to see this as all very a man-centric type of thing. There's even mentions of that, women are supposed to be they pray to be reborn as a man because being a woman is somehow lesser. And this is part of Confucianism, which the book, if you keep reading, actually is a strong critique of Confucianism, because this man lives out this life, and these women are constantly subverting their position at every opportunity, and this is celebrated. And even though they are all essentially in love with and focused around one man, the book never really feels like it's centering around this man. It feels like it's centering around the development of these female characters who are much more, I don't know, they're much stronger characters in my mind than Xiao Yu is. So I just found that fascinating. But beyond all this, it has a profound message, which I don't really want to spoil the details of how the book ends, because there's a lovely twist at the end of it all. But it reflects upon how you can achieve all that you dream of. You can attain the highest administrative rank, the best job, the best house, two princess wives and 6 concubines, more than any other man is allowed, and have just everything you can imagine in this life, and yet still be playing a sad song on your flute. And then they ask you why, and you say, well, I look out at the mountains where the tombs of the emperor are, and what's come of them? Who will remember them in 1,000 years, in 5,000 years, in 10,000 years? And this monk Xiao Yu, he began the book saying, that he was questioning if he wanted to remain a monk, because whoever remembers a monk? But on a long enough time scale, we are all forgotten. And this sense of impermanence is the real lesson at the heart of the book, not only for our man. This whole book does not serve to teach only our central male figure who is at the center of this polygamous marriage that's forming, but also the women. And it's very difficult to describe how this dynamic plays out, and how it is truly a rewarding and profound book, as well as an entertaining and funny one. So with all of that, and not only that, but the book is filled with poetry, with music. Xiao Yu Reborn is really a, he's like the best musician, the best strategist, the best poet, and he displays all these things, but it's really, as a man, but it's really the women who take him to any success that he achieves. And in fact, even in the wars, there is one that she appears to him as an assassin. And no, I don't want to spoil that part. But it's one of my favorite parts. But just say, even in the scenes of war, in the scenes of glory, I really do feel that the women take a center stage in this book, despite what an initial summary might make you think. And I think I've really gone overkill on that theme, but it's just because it's something that doesn't fit into my typical framework. It's an older book, 17th century. There's a lot of just the fact that the author wrote it from exile means that there is a lot of potential criticism here in his time that he was making toward the Korean king of the time, who this Korean king, from some things that I heard, had some troubles and did not treat his wives or concubines very well. So I think there is a lot of veiled critique in this story, not only of that, but of the glory that this king was aspiring to, and how impermanent it all is, and do the ends required to create such an empire, sorry, do the means required to create such a glorified empire of culture and so on, do they justify the means? All questions you can ask. There's so many wonderful, interesting things you can talk about with this book that I won't be able to talk about in this video. I just hope that I've been able to convince somebody to give it a go. And just to give you an idea, all the women have their special nicknames, just like in the water margin. I've noticed this is a very typical thing, and I think what they aren't nicknames. They're the meanings of the Chinese names. So our women of the story are Rainbow Phoenix, Moonlight, Shy Wild Goose, Jasper Shell Blossom, Spring Cloud, Panpipe Harmony Orchid, Cloud of Starlings, and Whitecap. And I think everyone who reads this can have their favorite, and or the one that they relate to, or that reflects the skills set that they have developed in their lives. And it's I don't know, just a joyful read. The translator has a wonderful video on YouTube as well, where he's speaking in more of an academic setting. He presents a lot of the themes and the ideas of this very well, and his introduction is very wonderful. Heinz Insufenkel, I'm sorry if I pronounced that wrong, but the translation is just top-notch. I don't need to know Chinese to know that this is an amazing translation, because it allowed me to enjoy this story immensely. And even if it's not 100% accurate or literal, which is of course very hard with a pictorial language, one thing I'm finding, like with the water margin, with Nine Cloud Dream, is that the pictorial language, when translated well, makes for very entertaining, very easy to read, and wonderful writing, because if the translator really feels it, you can feel it too. It's almost like they are translating a comic book, this sort of graphic or pictorial Chinese writing into English. So a book that both sees beyond the current division of Korea and is not North or South, it is Korea, but written in Chinese and in a Chinese setting, but about a religion that is really part of the whole region, Japan, China, and at the core of the novel, Buddhism is the central principle. And juxtaposing Buddhism with Confucian values of achievement, of meritocracy, of and it seeks, I think it seeks to position Buddhism as a sort of a more balanced approach to life, between the chaos of Taoism and the ultimate patriarchal order of Confucianism. So that's my best interpretation at this time. I'm certain that I will revisit this book, and I hope someday to feel myself knowledgeable and passionate and articulate enough to do a longer video about this book and what I love about it, and really explore all of the different characters more. It's a hope and a dream, but in the end, it's all impermanent, and if the only thing I take out of this book is the self-reflection, I mean, I had a conversation last night after finishing it. It's like, would I like to have, a little bit better house? Yeah. Would I like to have a little bit better job? Yeah. All these things are true, but it's like I get those things and then it never stops. I always want a little bit better. It's like it's our nature to just always want more, but where does it stop? You can have everything. You can get to the point of not even having any more to want, any more to ask, and still be asking yourself why. So why not ask the question now? Why? Why do I want more? Why do I want this? What for? Isn't There's something to be said for having the wisdom to know when it's time to be content. And I'm not saying that we all need to be content with our lot in life, but just to recognize that 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 want, it never ends. It's never enough. So we all have to kind of look in ourselves and find that wisdom to know, okay, when do I have enough? And when is it time to look around and ask what's my purpose here? And I wouldn't call myself a Buddhist, but I do find that Buddhism often leads me to an actual conclusion to that question, which is to ease the sufferings of others, to share with others, and to try to become a person that, without imposing myself on others, is simply here to serve others. And that's it. I mean, I don't want to get into a whole religious discussion right now. I'll hold back. That's the wisdom of knowing when enough is enough. So I will call an end to this video, and once again encourage you to read Man-Jung's The Nine Cloud Dream for the Koreas. One of my favorite books. All right. Have a great day.